The massive alien ship descended from the sky with a quiet hum, its sleek, otherworldly design cutting through the atmosphere like a blade through silk. Its dark, iridescent surface shimmered under the sun, casting eerie reflections across the landscape below. To the untrained eye, it looked like an advanced meteor, a force of nature that had come to rest on Earth. But this was no natural phenomenon. The aliens had arrived. Humanity had barely noticed the approaching craft, too preoccupied with their daily struggles to pay attention to what might be out of the ordinary in the sky. It wasn't until the ship's enormous, opaque doors slid open, revealing an alien delegation, that the world began to take notice. These were no invaders, at least not in the traditional sense. The beings that stepped from the ship were like nothing Earth scientists had ever seen. They were tall, their skin was translucent, glowing with a pale, bluish hue, and their eyes were too large, too dark to seem anything but unnatural. Their forms were long and thin, with elongated limbs and an aura of intelligence that radiated from them like an electric current. Their faces were covered by intricate, metallic helmets, but their body language spoke volumes. They were calm, calculating, and entirely focused on their mission. Their first actions were simple but deliberate. They sent out small drones that scanned the environment, observing the planet's ecosystem with quiet precision. Then, after days of analysis, they made contact. Through an advanced form of telepathy, the aliens communicated with Earth's leaders, politicians, scientists, and military officials alike. "We are scientists," the telepathic message conveyed. "We seek to study your species. Your planet intrigues us. We come in peace." The human world, shaken and stunned, debated how to respond. Many advocated for caution. Others believed the aliens to be a threat, but the calm assurance in their message and the lack of any immediate aggression left most of humanity intrigued, even eager. The aliens offered to share their technologies, claiming that their advanced sciences could revolutionize human society. However, the real purpose of their visit would soon become clear, and it would terrify both the aliens and humanity alike. The first encounters were marked by tense, formal meetings, held in specially constructed zones where the aliens could study humans under controlled conditions. The humans, dressed in their finest clothes, sat across from the aliens, eager to present themselves in the best possible light. These early conversations were largely one-sided, with the aliens posing detailed questions about human biology, history, culture, and technology. Their questions were relentless, but their fascination with humanity was palpable. For the first time in centuries, humans found themselves being studied like lab animals, and while many remained calm, others grew uncomfortable with the cold, clinical gaze of the aliens. The questions themselves weren't too alarming at first. Simple things like, how do you process emotions? Or what is the nature of your creative impulse? But as the days passed, the questions became more personal, more invasive. One scientist, Dr. Lila Hammond, a geneticist, was invited to accompany the aliens on a field study in the Amazon rainforest. The team arrived at the lush jungle, where the aliens deployed an array of advanced sensors, scanning the very air itself. The bioluminescent creatures that filled the jungle seemed unbothered by the presence of the visitors, moving freely around the group. "Will you call this phenomenon?" one of the aliens asked, pointing at a large flower that emitted a soft, mesmerizing light. "It's called a bioluminescent orchid," Dr. Hammond answered. The aliens stared at the flower for a long moment before turning to Dr. Hammond with a strange, unreadable expression. "We have encountered similar life forms on other worlds, but none of them are capable of what your species can do." Dr. Hammond's curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" "The connection between your biology and your environment is far deeper than we anticipated," the alien responded. "Your species can manipulate energy in ways we've never seen before. Your brains, your physical forms, even your emotions, everything about you is more complex, more dangerous than we thought." Dr. Hammond's heart skipped a beat. The aliens' words held an unspoken weight, a sense of urgency. As they continued their study, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense, though the aliens said nothing more about their concerns. But Dr. Hammond couldn't shake the feeling that they were hiding something they had discovered about humanity, something that left them terrified. The questions they asked began to shift in tone, their curiosity evolving into something more akin to fear. The subtle change in the way they viewed humans wasn't lost on her. That night, after the group returned to their ship, Dr. Hammond watched the aliens through the jungle's dense foliage. They stood at the edge of their vessel, conversing among themselves in low, hurried tones. She could see the flicker of their glowing skin as they gestured to each other, their once perfect calm now replaced by a sense of unease. The more she watched, the more she realized that the aliens were no longer looking at humanity with curiosity. They were looking at it with fear. And soon, she would understand why. The next day, the alien delegation requested an audience with Earth's highest-ranking leaders. Dr. Hammond, still unsettled by the previous night's events, attended the meeting alongside government officials and prominent scientists. There was a palpable tension in the air, a quiet unease that permeated the room. The aliens, once calm and composed, now appeared visibly disturbed, their glowing skin flickering with anxiety. The leader of the alien delegation, a being named Kress, stood before the group. His voice, transmitted telepathically, was calm but carried a tremor of urgency. "We have made a discovery," Kress began, his words cutting through the silence. "A discovery that we did not anticipate, and one that we now fear will change the course of our mission, and possibly your species' future." The room fell silent. All eyes were on Kress as he paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle. "We came here to study you," he continued, "to understand your biology, your culture, your history. What we found, however, is far more complex than we ever imagined. You are not the primitive species we thought you were. In fact, you are not primitive at all. Your kind has hidden powers, powers that, if left unchecked, could pose a grave threat to the universe." Dr. Hammond's heart raced. The room buzzed with whispers, the weight of Kress's statement sinking in. What could he possibly mean by hidden powers? The humans had always believed they were just like any other species on Earth. But perhaps the aliens had uncovered something far more extraordinary. Kress's eyes, glowing a deep violet, shifted toward Dr. Hammond. She couldn't tell if he was looking directly at her, or if he was scanning the room in general. The alien's gaze seemed to penetrate deep into her mind, sending a shiver down her spine. "You humans," Kress said, "possess an ability to manipulate the very fabric of reality. Not only do you interact with the world in ways that are still beyond our comprehension, but you can alter the laws of physics themselves, something we had no idea was possible." The room erupted into chaos. Scientists, military officials, and politicians all began talking over one another, demanding explanations. Dr. Hammond's mind spun as she tried to process what Kress had just revealed. How could this be possible? She had never encountered anything in her research that suggested humanity had any such powers. Kress raised a hand, his voice cutting through the commotion. "We have observed the way your species' emotions are tied to the energy fields around you. Your feelings, your anger, your joy, your fear generate vast amounts of energy that seem to resonate with the fabric of space-time. This energy can be harnessed, controlled, even weaponized." Dr. Hammond's mind reeled. Could this be true? Were humans capable of manipulating energy in ways that could bend the laws of the universe itself? She had studied the brain for years, but even she couldn't fathom how emotions could be tied to something so powerful. The implications were staggering. The alien leader continued, "We have also discovered that this energy is not just confined to individual humans. It appears that when large groups of your species gather, their collective emotions amplify the effects. We have witnessed it in battle, in moments of extreme stress or conflict. When humans are united in their emotions, the resulting energy is catastrophic." Dr. Hammond's thoughts raced back to the history of humanity, wars, revolutions, violent uprisings. Could it be that the chaos of human conflict wasn't just destruction, but a manifestation of this hidden power? Was the world unknowingly on the brink of something far more dangerous than anyone had ever realized? Kress's expression turned grim. "What you call the human spirit is a force we have never encountered. On your own, humans are capable of small bursts of this energy, But when you unite, when you share common goals, emotions, or desires, the power becomes exponentially stronger. We have witnessed entire cities, entire populations, being affected by this energy, warping reality around them. We fear that if your species learns how to control this, you could become a force that is impossible to contain. Dr. Hammond's breath caught in her throat. The aliens weren't here to study humans anymore. They were here to prevent them from discovering their true potential. The fear in their eyes was undeniable now. They hadn't come in peace to simply observe. They had come to contain humanity before it was too late. The telepathic transmission from Cress shifted, now laced with an edge of desperation. We did not come to conquer you. We did not come to destroy you. But we must warn you, if you learn how to wield this power, you could alter the balance of the universe itself. Your potential is terrifying, and we cannot allow it to spiral out of control. Dr. Hammond glanced around the room. The other leaders were frozen, uncertain of how to react. Some appeared skeptical, others frightened. But the truth was clear. Humanity was sitting on a power greater than any of them had ever imagined. The aliens had come to study, but what they had found terrified them. In that moment, Dr. Hammond understood the gravity of their situation. The aliens weren't simply observing humanity anymore. They were afraid of what humanity could become. And if they didn't find a way to control this power, the future of Earth and the entire universe could be at stake. Days passed, and the sense of unease deepened. The meeting with Cress and the other alien scientists left a lingering tension in the air. The world's leaders, still processing the enormity of the revelation, convened in secret. Dr. Hammond was invited to several of these high-level discussions. Her expertise in human biology and genetics now deemed crucial to understanding this newfound power that the aliens feared. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed in the way the aliens regarded humans. They no longer saw them as mere subjects for study. They saw them as a threat. And that was what terrified Dr. Hammond the most. If the aliens had come here with the intent of studying human potential, what would they do now that they had uncovered the truth? The media, of course, had caught wind of the aliens' warning, and speculations ran wild. Some people believed the aliens were simply manipulating humanity for their own ends, using fear to keep control. Others, like the world's leading scientists, began to explore whether the aliens were right. Was there something inherent in human biology that allowed them to manipulate the laws of reality? Dr. Hammond spent sleepless nights in her lab, running simulations and experiments in an attempt to understand the mysterious energy the aliens had spoken of. Her mind was a whirl of questions. Could it be that the human brain was somehow attuned to this energy? Was it possible that the collective unconscious could produce tangible, physical effects on the world? The idea was so mind-bending, it felt like science fiction. But then, something happened that shook her to her core. One evening, Dr. Hammond was alone in her lab, running tests on a neural interface connected to a group of volunteers who had been instructed to meditate and focus their emotions. It was a simple experiment, intended to measure fluctuations in energy levels when humans experienced heightened emotions. But as she reviewed the data, she noticed something astonishing. There were anomalies in the readings. At first, she thought it was a glitch in the system. The equipment was cutting edge, but even the best technology could malfunction. However, as she ran the tests again, she saw the same results. The energy levels were spiking in ways that should have been impossible. Dr. Hammond's breath caught in her throat as the implications hit her. These weren't just small fluctuations. There were vast bursts of energy so intense it was actually bending the readings of the equipment. And it wasn't just confined to one person. The readings from multiple test subjects, human beings, ordinary humans, were displaying the same patterns, suggesting that the power wasn't isolated. It was collective. The implications were staggering. The aliens were right. Humanity had the ability to alter the laws of physics itself. But as the excitement of this discovery started to wash over her, a darker thought crept into Dr. Hammond's mind. If the aliens were aware of this, and if they were truly afraid of it, then it was only a matter of time before they acted. She had to warn someone. She had to make the world understand the consequences of what they were about to face. That night, she contacted a few trusted colleagues and shared the findings. Together, they decided to approach the global leaders with an urgent message. Humanity's greatest strength could also become its greatest downfall. The alien scientists had already realized this. It was time for Earth to confront the reality of its potential. But as Dr. Hammond was preparing to send the data to the world's leaders, she received an unexpected message. This one was not from a colleague, but from Cress. The telepathic message came through as a sudden, invasive presence in her mind. The voice of Cress was sharp and tense. Dr. Hammond, you are on the brink of something that will change everything. You are beginning to unlock the power we feared. Do not make the mistake of thinking you control it. You do not. You cannot. She recoiled as the voice pulsed in her head. Her hands trembled, but she quickly composed herself. Why are you doing this? Why didn't you warn us before? She responded mentally, her thoughts filled with defiance. The power you are awakening is unstable. Your species is not ready. We tried to warn you. Now you must stop your research. The energy you are tampering with is not just a threat to your planet. It is a threat to the fabric of existence itself. You cannot harness it, and you must not let your kind try. You have no idea what will happen if this power is fully unleashed. Cress's words sent a chill down her spine. There was fear in his tone now, real fear, as if the very idea of humanity realizing its true potential was something even the most advanced species in the universe couldn't contain. And then the message ended, as abruptly as it had come. Dr. Hammond sat in stunned silence. The data was now undeniable. The power that the aliens feared existed. Humanity could manipulate reality itself. But the question remained, should they? The very idea of it felt intoxicating, like the promise of a godlike power within their reach. But the more she thought about Cress's warning, the more the weight of the consequences pressed down on her. Would humanity succumb to the temptation to control this power? Or would they heed the warning and learn to live within the limits of their understanding? But it was already too late to go back. The research was already out there. It was only a matter of time before others realized what she had discovered, and before the aliens, no matter how advanced, could stop them. The question now was not if humanity would awaken its power, but when. As the weeks passed, the tension on Earth grew unbearable. Dr. Hammond had hoped that her findings would be met with caution and restraint, but instead, they became the spark that ignited a global frenzy. News of humanity's latent power spread like wildfire, and different factions, scientists, politicians, religious groups, and even rogue military organizations began to scramble to harness it for their own ends. It wasn't long before the first human experiment to manipulate the energy, intentionally, rather than accidentally, was attempted. The experiment took place in a secluded research facility, hidden deep within the Arctic. A group of elite scientists, funded by the global conglomerates, had gathered to push the boundaries of what Dr. Hammond's research had uncovered. They had constructed a machine designed to amplify and focus the energy generated by human emotions. If successful, the device would allow them to channel the raw power into a directed beam that could alter the very structure of matter itself. The team's leader, Dr. Ethan Drexler, was an ambitious physicist who had quickly become one of the world's leading voices in energy manipulation. Despite Dr. Hammond's warnings, he believed humanity's destiny was to control this newfound power, not shy away from it. He convinced a select few world leaders to fund his operation, arguing that it was the key to unlocking humanity's true potential. He was determined to be the one to shape the future. But the experiment went horribly wrong. As the team activated the machine, Dr. Drexler and his colleagues channeled their collective emotions into the device. Initially, the results were astounding. The machine hummed to life, and a shimmering field of energy began to radiate from it, swirling like a storm of light. The air around them crackled with intensity, the atmosphere thick with an energy they couldn't fully comprehend. At first, it felt exhilarating. The scientists marveled at the potential, The machine could amplify human emotions to create a concentrated form of energy that could reshape entire landscapes. It was like holding the keys to the universe itself. But the moment the device reached its peak, something went wrong. The collective emotions of the scientists, a mix of excitement, fear, and awe, exploded in a massive surge. The machine couldn't handle the immense power that had been generated. It was as though the energy itself had taken on a life of its own. Reality bent. Time seemed to stretch, then snap back. The air shimmered, and the ground cracked as an enormous shockwave radiated outward, distorting everything in its path. The researchers were thrown to the ground, their bodies lifted off the ground by the sheer force of the wave. The Arctic landscape outside the facility began to twist and contort as the fabric of reality itself seemed to warp. Mountains trembled, and the ice beneath their feet cracked like fragile glass. The energy was no longer controllable. Dr. Drexler and his team realized too late the truth of Kress's warning. The power they were tampering with was not something that could be contained. It was a force far beyond their understanding. The machine's failure triggered a chain reaction, and within seconds, the research facility was consumed by the energy. The walls buckled, the floors collapsed, and the entire structure was disintegrated, leaving only a void where once there had been a thriving scientific hub. Outside, the landscape continued to ripple, and the sky above turned dark with swirling, unnatural clouds. The world had just witnessed the first human-made reality warping event, and it had been disastrous. Across the globe, the alien delegation was quick to react. Kress and his fellow scientists had been monitoring the situation from afar, and when they sensed the rupture in reality, they knew that the point of no return had been crossed. Dr. Hammond, now in a state of panic, watched as military forces and intelligence agencies scrambled to contain the fallout from the Arctic disaster. Her phone rang constantly, calls from government officials demanding answers, from the media begging for a statement. But it wasn't just the world leaders who were concerned. She could feel the weight of the alien scientist's presence once again in her mind. A new telepathic message from Kress came through, more urgent than ever before. "You have crossed a line, Dr. Hammond. We warned you. We tried to stop you. But now it is too late. The energy you've unleashed is beyond your control. It is already spreading, infecting your world. And worse, it is warping the very space around your planet." Dr. Hammond's heart sank. The implications were now far worse than she could have imagined. The fabric of reality itself was becoming unstable, and humanity had no idea how to stop it. The aliens, who had once come to Earth to study, were now preparing to intervene. It was no longer just a question of containing humanity's power. Now, they were faced with a far more difficult dilemma. Could they allow humanity to continue down this path, or would they be forced to take drastic action to prevent the entire universe from falling victim to the chaotic energy humans had unleashed? Kress's voice echoed in Dr. Hammond's mind again, more resolute this time. "We will attempt to neutralize the instability you've created. But understand this, Dr. Hammond. If your species cannot learn to control this power, the consequences will be catastrophic. You will not just endanger Earth. You will endanger everything." But despite the gravity of the message, Dr. Hammond knew the truth. The alien scientists had feared humanity's power for a reason, and now that power had been unleashed, no one, neither the aliens nor humanity, could predict what would happen next. In the days that followed, the world began to change. Reality itself seemed to pulse, as though responding to the collective energy of humanity. Small anomalies began to appear everywhere, anomalies that defied explanation. People would see glimpses of alternate realities, objects would vanish and reappear, and time would occasionally fracture, leaving moments frozen in space. As the world teetered on the edge of the unknown, one thing became clear. Humanity had awakened a force that could reshape everything. And there was no turning back. The world teetered on the edge of oblivion, its reality warped by the unstable energy unleashed by humanity's first experiment with the hidden power. In the wake of the Arctic disaster, the atmosphere had become a cauldron of chaos. Across the globe, people reported bizarre phenomena. Time loops that left entire cities trapped in endless moments, entire landscapes folding in on themselves, and objects suddenly appearing or vanishing without explanation. In one city, gravity itself seemed to reverse for a brief moment, leaving cars and buildings floating in midair. The governments of Earth were scrambling, but they were out of their depth. No one understood the true nature of the power humanity had unlocked. Worse, the global response was fragmented. Nations, each dealing with their own localized catastrophes, were more concerned with protecting their borders than cooperating with one another. Amidst this chaos, the alien delegation finally made their move. It had been weeks since Dr. Hammond's last telepathic communication with Cress. The aliens, once watching with trepidation, had finally decided that humanity's actions could no longer be ignored. They would intervene directly. The first sign of their arrival was the sudden appearance of a massive, shimmering craft hovering high above the United Nations headquarters in New York City. Unlike the sleek ships they had arrived in previously, this one was a massive, dark monolith, emanating a palpable sense of foreboding. The sky around it shimmered, as though reality itself was warping to accommodate its presence. The sheer scale of the craft made the alien ship that had originally landed on Earth seem insignificant by comparison. Humanity's governments, still reeling from the aftermath of the Arctic event, had no choice but to react. The world held its breath as the ship began to lower, its energy fields radiating outward in waves. In moments, the entire city was bathed in an eerie, quiet hum, a sound that seemed to echo deep in the bones of every human within earshot. From the ship emerged Cress and his fellow alien scientists, this time accompanied by a more imposing presence, military-like figures, their helmets reflecting the distorted light of the warping atmosphere. Their faces were hidden, but their aura of authority was undeniable. Cress, the leader of the delegation, communicated immediately with Earth's leaders, his telepathic message filled with both urgency and authority. Your species has unleashed a power that you cannot control. You have no concept of the destruction you are inviting. We warned you, but now it is too late. You have begun to fracture the boundaries of reality itself. This cannot continue. The alien leader paused for a moment, as if weighing the magnitude of his next words. We are here to contain the damage you've done. Dr. Hammond, now part of the Global Council, convened to handle the situation, listened with a sense of foreboding. She had known that the aliens would act, but the cold reality of their presence was something she wasn't prepared for. There was no negotiation now, no hope for peaceful coexistence. The aliens had come not as observers, but as enforcers. I warned you, Cress's voice echoed in her mind again, but we never imagined that your species would trigger this level of instability so quickly. It is only by sheer coincidence that the damage has not yet spread beyond your planet. Dr. Hammond's stomach churned. This wasn't just about controlling the power. This was about stopping humanity's potential from spreading beyond Earth. And if they couldn't, the consequences would ripple through the entire cosmos. We can stabilize the rifts you've caused, Cress continued, but we need your cooperation. You must stop your experiments immediately. The collective energy you're generating is threatening to tear the fabric of the universe apart. If we cannot contain it, it will destroy everything. Humanity's leaders, in shock and fear, had little choice but to comply. With the alien intervention came the promise of salvation, or the threat of annihilation. They agreed to let the aliens take control, but not without resistance. A small faction of scientists, military leaders, and global influencers, believing that the aliens were overstepping their bounds, began to rally against them. They argued that the aliens were simply trying to suppress humanity's rise to power, to prevent Earth from joining the greater galactic community on equal footing. Despite the resistance, the aliens set their plan into motion. The first phase of their intervention was a powerful energy pulse fired from their ship, an unearthly frequency designed to stabilize the rippling distortions in Earth's reality. The pulse sent a shockwave across the globe, and for the first time since the Arctic disaster, the wild fluctuations in time and space began to calm. The shimmering sky began to settle, and the reality rifts, though still present, seemed to recede slightly, as if held in place by some unseen force. But the damage had already been done. The destabilization was far deeper than even the aliens had anticipated. The power humans had tapped into, though temporarily subdued, was still alive, still growing. And as Kress warned, it was not just a localized phenomenon. The energy was spreading, slowly but inevitably, throughout the entire solar system. Dr. Hammond, still working tirelessly to understand the energy, realized the full scale of the danger. The rifts weren't simply random distortions. They were fractures in the very laws of physics that govern the universe. The more humanity used their emotional power, the more these fractures would spread. And, as the rifts expanded, they would reach further and further into the cosmos, threatening the stability of everything in their wake. It was clear that the only way to stop it was to sever humanity's connection to the energy entirely. But how could that be done? The aliens had tried to contain the damage, but they were limited by the sheer scale of what had been unleashed. The real question now was whether the aliens could find a way to truly shut down humanity's power before it was too late, or if humanity itself would have to learn to control its own destiny before the universe paid the price for its recklessness. As the alien forces worked to stabilize the planet, Kress's message grew more dire. If this continues, we will have no choice but to sever your planet from the rest of the galaxy. We will isolate you, and if you cannot control your power, we will destroy it. The ultimatum was clear. Humanity had only one choice: learn to control the power, or risk its total annihilation. The world stood at the precipice of an unimaginable decision. The alien intervention had succeeded in stabilizing Earth's immediate environment, but only temporarily. The rifts in reality still pulsed beneath the surface, threatening to erupt at any moment. Kress and his fellow aliens had warned humanity that the power they had unleashed was not just dangerous, it was cosmic in scale. And the aliens, though they had halted the worst of the destruction, had made one thing abundantly clear. If humanity couldn't learn to control this power, the universe itself would be at risk. Dr. Hammond, more than anyone, understood the weight of what was at stake. Her research had shown her the raw potential of humanity, the capacity for unthinkable energy generation through collective emotion, a force unlike anything the universe had ever seen. The idea that humanity could someday wield such power could be a blessing or a curse. If controlled, it could elevate Earth to a level of understanding and capability far beyond the grasp of the alien civilizations. But if left unchecked, it could spiral into catastrophe. As the days passed, the debate raged. Some leaders insisted that humanity's power should be nurtured, that it was a gift from the universe, one that should be honed and explored. Others, influenced by the aliens' warnings, argued for submission, for a relinquishing of control to the aliens who seemed to hold the answers. Still others, driven by the scars of recent disasters, feared the power entirely and sought to shut it down for good. Dr. Hammond, caught between her loyalty to her species and the looming threat from the alien forces, had become more than just a scientist. She had become a symbol of humanity's potential and its greatest fear. The global summit held in Geneva was supposed to be a turning point. The United Nations had called for a final resolution on the matter, bringing together representatives from every nation, every faction, and every scientific mind that could contribute. It was humanity's last chance to decide its fate. Kress and his team arrived with a solemn air. Their usual calm demeanor was replaced by visible exhaustion. It was clear that their patience had worn thin. The aliens were offering humanity one final chance to learn how to control their energy, one last opportunity to prove they could be trusted with such a dangerous force. But Dr. Hammond, the scientist who had unlocked this potential in the first place, knew that the aliens' offer was more than just a plea for peace. It was a threat. "We cannot keep you tethered to the brink of destruction forever," Kress's telepathic voice echoed through the minds of the assembly. "Your species is not ready for the responsibility of this power. But we will give you a choice. A final choice." The room was deathly silent. Either you allow us to sever your connection to this energy, take it away entirely, wiping your species' potential from the fabric of existence, or you accept the terms of our containment. If you choose the latter, we will provide the means for you to control the power. But you will be bound by strict limitations. No longer will you have the freedom to unleash it at will. It will be carefully regulated. The weight of the decision hung in the air like a storm cloud. If humanity chose to accept the containment, they would be allowed to continue their existence, but under constant alien oversight. The power they had unlocked would be suppressed, their ability to manipulate reality limited to the aliens' strict guidelines. Earth would remain an isolated, protected planet, its future forever tied to the goodwill of the alien delegation. But if humanity chose to sever the connection altogether, it would be as though the power had never existed. The aliens would wipe the very possibility of this reality-altering force from human potential. Earth would be left to rebuild, but its path forward would be constrained, unable to reach the heights of possibility that this power had offered. It would be as if humanity had never even begun to touch the stars. Dr. Hammond's mind raced. She had spent years studying the human mind, its potential, its power. She knew that humanity was capable of greatness, perhaps even greatness beyond what the aliens could understand. But she also knew the consequences of that power, the cost of allowing it to spiral out of control. Was it worth the risk to push forward? Could humanity truly handle the responsibility of such immense power? She stood before the assembly, her voice steady, but her heart heavy with the burden of the decision that lay before her. "I believe we can control it," Dr. Hammond said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Humanity is not perfect, but we've learned, adapted, and evolved for millennia. If we choose to accept this power, we must also accept the responsibility that comes with it. We can't allow fear to dictate our future. We need to evolve, not just as a species, but as a civilization capable of managing our gifts, our emotions, and our strength." The room was quiet for a long time. Some leaders looked at her with skepticism, others with hope. But the moment stretched on as the decision was weighed. Finally, the voice of the world's leader, the President of the United States, broke the silence. His tone was measured, yet resolute. Humanity's greatest strength has always been its resilience. And if we're going to survive as a species, we need to understand that strength, not hide from it. I agree with Dr. Hammond. We will take control of this power. A ripple of agreement spread through the room. The decision was made. The aliens, though disappointed, knew that their role was now clear. The choice had been made. Humanity had chosen its path, and with it came the responsibility of their future. Kress and his delegation, though unable to prevent Earth from pursuing its destiny, would provide the necessary technology and guidance to help humanity contain the energy it had unleashed. It would no longer be a question of stopping the power. It would be about learning to wield it wisely. As the final agreement was signed, Kress turned to Dr. Hammond one last time, his voice filled with a mixture of admiration and foreboding. "You have chosen Earth. You have chosen your destiny. But remember, this power, once you truly awaken it, will not be easily contained. The universe watches now, and so will we." The alien delegation departed, leaving behind a world forever changed. Humanity had made its choice, and the future was now theirs to shape, its power, its potential, its fate. And as the first steps toward control began, Dr. Hammond knew one thing for certain. The true test was just beginning.